Good morning. Welcome to Let's Bet It here on Pickswise and Pickswise.com. I'm Mark Zinno. He's Jared Smith. Welcome in here as Let's Bet It is presented by Superbook Sports. Make sure you guys download that Pickswise app. It's available on the Apple Store and Google Play as well. Subscribe to the Pickswise YouTube channel. When you're checking us out there, make sure you leave some comments, questions. Let us know what games you're on. We'll try to answer them all as we get through the show, as we do every single day. We've got some NFL midweek line moves to get to, as words are a problem here. 2 days before Christmas, 3 days. How many days before Christmas? 4. We'll look at some conference winner odds in the NFL. We'll talk some NFL with Sean Green. Of course, we'll have our plays of the day. Jared, as I struggle to get out of the gate here, please save me from my own words. How are you this morning?
Yeah, you okay, bud? Rough night with a rough morning with the kids, maybe?
You know what it is here in Georgia? The kids are off school. They've been off school since Monday.
Oh, yeah, that's
they're
right.
at home every single day, and I just feel like a beaten, rented mule at this point in time.
Yeah, that'll do it. That's how I felt last night with the Toledo game.
Yeah.
That was a tough win, no cover. That and it was funny. We were talking before the show about how often that happens, and it doesn't happen as often as I expected, but a little bit more than I expected, I guess, is how I should say that. Because in the NFL, the underdogs usually when they cover, they win. It's about a 75 to 80% clip. In college football bowl season over the last 5 years, only about 65% of the underdogs that cover also win outright. So it does happen about 4 out of 10 underdogs that cover do not win outright, which again, maybe that's because the lines are a little bit bigger in bowl season perhaps than in the NFL. You know, you get a lot of double-digit spreads compared to in the NFL, not as many, although this year it seems like there's been a bunch. But that kind of surprised me a little bit. I thought that number would be a little bit bigger, like a little closer to the NFL, which is about 75, 80%. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, look, you got hosed. There's no other way to say it. It was a bad backdoor cover.
That was a tough loss.
Yeah, anybody who had Liberty was happy with a bad backdoor cover. If you had Toledo, kind of, hey, listen, you do this long enough, that's going to happen more than once to you at some point in time.
Oh yeah.
Much like people had the Colts on the money line last Saturday. It was so it's a bad.
At
way
least
to go
they
out.
covered though. At least they did cover.
Yeah, they covered. Well, yeah.
Unless you had one shop I know in town here had a 3, closed 3. They saw it coming with Minnesota, I guess, but everyone else was 3.5.
Again, I don't think we've been together, but I did live bet Minnesota over the weekend at plus 870.
Did you really?
So yes, I did. I put up my Twitter
really?
on social media. $25. Wow. It was nothing, but still cash out at 242.
That's a nice hit, though, bud. That's a nice hit.
I mean, listen, it was 23-0, and I'm sitting here, and the Vikings get the ball back, and they're inside their own 15-yard line. But I'm like, they go down and score here. They get the ball back at half, 23-14. Theoretically, I'm alive. The very next play, Kirk Cousins threw a pick 6 and made it 30-0. I went, whoops. Oh, well, there goes that. And then next thing you know,
at that point, you got to go back in. You got to dive. You got to fire away again.
I held on to it. And a former colleague of ours, I was sitting there watching the game in the bar with Alex Glaze, and he bet the same $25.
Were you really?
He cashed out for $2.90. He's like, I'd rather keep my $2.90.
Come on, bud.
I'll hang on to it. I hung on to it and cashed out. So it was one of the more memorable wins I've had. Certainly not a lot of money, obviously. But
That's a fun story right there. Yeah, that's a fun story.
Every now and then you get lucky. All right, let's look at the midweek line moves between the NFL teams here as we head into Week 15. The Eagles and Cowboys is interesting. You pointed this out on your social media. The Jalen Hurts news moved that line very, very quickly. Almost, it actually moved before the news technically broke. So clearly somebody got a tip, which is fine. I mean, there's nothing nefarious about that going on. It's okay for odds makers to stay ahead of the public and stay ahead of the news. That's part of why they're good at what they do. But that said, you get this now, balloons up to minus 6 for the Cowboys, now back down to 5.5 here, which is where I think it'll settle in. I don't think you'll see this thing move much more. I got to tell you, though, Jared, if you're giving me 5.5 points with the best team in football, I'm taking every single one of them.
I agree. I do think so. First of all, this is for those of you that are new to NFL betting this year. It's not unheard of that the market moves before the news breaks. In fact, it's usually how this goes. The bettors that are in the know, I am not one of them. I am a secondary market person. I see the move happening and then I can digest why. All right, to try to deduce why it's happening, and then you can kind of get to the bottom of it. I'm not someone that gets this news first, but the sharpest of the sharp people who do, they're the ones that are the market setters. They're the ones that move the market accordingly. And then the news starts to filter out. I want to say there was probably about a 30-minute to 1 hour gap between the market moving and Schefter's tweet. That's about how much time you have to kind of get in there. And then it moved another point or two after Schefter's tweet. And now it's settling back down. In fact, I actually saw Westgate this morning go back to 4.5. So you are starting to see some Philly money come back in the market. The peak was 6. It's tough because Gardner Minshew, I dug into some of Gardner's numbers last night. I mean, listen, he started 2 games last year. He whipped the Jets pretty good. I remember that game vividly. And this obviously isn't the same Jets defense this year as it was last year, but it was still a Robert Saleh defense with some decent pieces on it last year. They just didn't quite have the secondary that they have this year. And you want to talk about like a perfect situation to be plopped down into. We saw this with Brock Purdy. You get an Eagles offense that has arguably the best offensive line in the NFL. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Miles Sanders, Dallas Goedert. I mean, it's not like it's a Texans situation where you go from Davis Mills to Jeff Driscoll and it's a disaster. There's some pieces with Philly that scare me. On the other side, Dallas's defense has been really good in these types of spots. And I think that's going to be where this game is won. Like, I don't think the Gardner Minshew situation is going to be where this game's decided. I think it's going to be decided in the trenches. These are 2 of the best fronts in the league on both sides. So who gets the better of that matchup? Does the Philly front, which has been a little bit the last couple of weeks, Jalen Hurts ran all over them. Reddick and Sweat were really good in that game, but the rest of the rotational pieces really weren't. Sue and Joseph did not grade out well. Graham and Cox, they really struggled too. So I think the Dallas offensive line could be a big factor here if they can figure out a way to neutralize Reddick and Sweat. And on the other side, it's all about Gardner Minshew's decision-making against the Dallas front that will come after him. I mean, Dallas leads the NFL in pressure rate. They're a top 5 pass rush win rate team. They're going to get pressure on Gardner Minshew. It's all about how he handles that and digests it, but he's got a ton of help around him. So this is going to be a really fun game. I'll be honest. I'm actually more intrigued with this game with Gardner Minshew than I was with Jalen Hurts because it adds a wrinkle that is a little bit harder to quantify, and it makes it more fun, I think, from a entertainment value perspective.
Well, I'll add this. Dallas the last 2 weeks has given up 63 points, the Dallas defense that is supposed to be so vaunted. For perspective, they gave up 73 points total in the first 6 weeks of the NFL season. So is there some concern about Dallas's defense maybe wearing down a little bit? I don't know. Hard to find out, but it's very simply. If you're giving me 5.5 points with the best team in football, I'm going to take them, period. Let's not underscore Philadelphia's defense as being something of just a run-through. They've had problems stopping the run of points this year, but still, with everything that's on the line, and Jalen Hurts, for the record, I don't think he's playing at all, Jared, honestly. There's no reason to believe he's going to play.
Either.
The Eagles have to win
we'll
one
ask
more
Sean
game.
Green in a minute.
Yeah,
he's
to
the
lock
Eagles
up the
insider.
No. I don't see any reason that he would play. All right, Texans and Titans. This Titans line opened at -7.5. Now we're down to Titans -5. which makes a ton of sense to me. When I first saw this line, I'm like, are you kidding me? You want me to lay more than a touchdown with that anemic offense? I mean, for perspective, again, they just lost to the Chargers. The Chargers can't stop the run, period. And Tennessee only managed to score 14 points with Derrick Henry on offense. That tells you how bad things are for them offensively at this point in time.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the Texans might not have anything left in the tank defensively, and that's what interests me about this game a lot. And when you look at Malik Willis, so let's do a little line analysis here with Malik Willis. So the Titans were 1.5-point road favorites. So this is basically the exact same game from Week 8. Malik Willis on the road at Houston. The Titans were 1.5-point road favorites. If you assume 1.5 points, let's say 2 for home field advantage, then on a neutral, the books are telling you that line should have been Tennessee minus 3.5. Well, now, 8 weeks later, Malik Willis is at home and the line's 5. So if you flip it and you give Malik Willis 2 points for his home field advantage, well, that should be Titans 5.5. And that's assuming that Malik Willis has not improved 1 moment, 1 millisecond, 1 millimeter since Week 8. And I think he has. I mean, he went on the road. He beat a division rival. Then the next week, he went to Arrowhead and took the Chiefs to overtime. And I know Derrick Henry was a big factor in that game, but hey, it's their team. I think he learned something from that. And then he went back to the bench and he learned something, and he went kind of relaxed a little bit over the next few weeks, and Tannehill came back. And now he gets another bite at the apple against the Texans defense. That's just, really, really bad. So I think we're getting a little value here on Malik Willis at 5. I think I would give Malik Willis at least a 0.5 point to a point of improvement and learn, knowledge from what he did in the first round of his start. And then, oh, by the way, Derrick Henry has 4 straight 200-yard games against Houston. And they beat him by 7 in Houston. So I feel like they can beat him by 7 again at home in this spot and cover the spread. So I kind of like the Titans here in this spot.
Yeah, again, I'm just not going to do it. Not with my money. I'm not trusting that offense by more than a field goal at this point. I've seen nothing to make me to believe to generate that they could. So regardless, it's interesting to see how this is all going to play out. And weather is playing a factor all across the NFL this weekend, which is why you're seeing
that will be a factor.
Saints-Browns game that was a total of 36, now all the way down to 32. You're expected 15 to 20 mile an hour winds. Not that snow or anything or precipitation is going to be in the forecast, but typically odds makers value wind is the most thing that will affect the line aside in the total overall. You're going to see high and heavy winds in Chicago as well, where the Bills and Buffalo is playing, but this number very, very low at 32. I mean, we stopped key numbers at 38. I didn't realize 35, I guess, and then 32 are key numbers as well if you use the field goal math all the way down. But this is insanely low. For the record, I love Cleveland in this spot to win this game and cover this number. If you're at 3 or less, for me, it's 100% a buy on Cleveland. But with the total where it is, it brings a little bit of variance into question for both teams.
Yeah, I haven't looked at this game at all because I saw that total and I just said, no, thank you. It's the lowest total in the NFL in I think 15 years. There are 7 totals this week in the 30s. This being obviously the lowest. This has been such a weird year in the NFL. And also another wrinkle this week. Most of the games are being played on Saturday. So I think for the only time all season, you're getting 75% of the league on a short week. This has been a very strange season. And I don't really know what to make of not only everyone playing on a short week, who is going to actually, who's that going to affect? It might not affect anyone, but outdoors, cold weather, short week, there's going to be some teams that come out just completely flat. And it's our job to figure out which ones. And it's not been an easy task this year. But, the Saints, Andy Dalton is a very interesting case, right? I would imagine that they're going to run it left, right, and center. Mark Ingram and Kamara and those guys, Cleveland's really struggled there this year. And I saw some Nick Chubb injury issues this week. I don't know if he's going to play. We'll get some practice. The good news is the good news is about an early week is we got some practice reports back yesterday, which a day earlier than we normally do. But there's just so many weird things about this game. The total being low, the fact that neither team really has much to play for. I guess Cleveland has a little bit more to play for. But let's be honest, the AFC is really tough.
In the NFC South, I mean, theoretically, with 3 to play, they're a game out. They're still mathematically alive, obviously.
It's wild at 5-9 that they are alive and well in the NFC South. That's wild.
A couple little nuggets here. A couple little nuggets on this game to put in your back pocket. One, it's your 4th game for Deshaun Watson. So, in theory, he's been through a full training camp now with 3 games. Yeah. You might start to see
better last week, too.
This might be the game where he breaks out. 2, the Saints this year have given up at least 25 rushing yards to 7 different quarterbacks. If you go look at the mobile quarterbacks that they've played this year, whether it's Mariota with the Falcons twice, or at least Ritter the second time, Kyler Murray, a couple of other ones, they've had good running games against this Saints defense. And then 3, New Orleans is giving up over 145 rushing yards per game on the ground away from the Superdome this year. They're 1-5 against the number on the road. Browns too good on the ground. I love the Browns this week. Probably one of my better bets on my card. Just a side note there. All right, let's move on from that with odds to win the conference championship starting in the AFC. Bills still the odds-on favorite. Look, bottom line is the Bengals may be the best team in football right now, and the fact that they're still 4.5 to 1 to me seems very enticing for them not to win the AFC.
Yeah, I did a lot of work on Cincinnati this week. I mean, the Lou Anarumo stuff, I mean, they did not let – hold on, let me pull up my Bengals notes here. That was a master class in halftime adjustments. They did not allow Tom Brady to cross midfield in the third quarter of that game. I mean, that you're talking about a Bucs team that was dominating that football game in the first half, up 17-0. Then they go into halftime, and Lou Anarumo, and again, they were without their best pass rusher, Trey Hendrickson. They go into halftime, they make some adjustments, they come out, and they just dominate that football game defensively in the second half. And they made Brady throw a bunch of picks, and it was a master class. And I think Buffalo and Kansas City are very reliant on their quarterbacks right now, and the Bengals are not. They're a team. And that's the separating point for me. So, yeah, I don't price it this way. I think all 3 of those teams are dead even in my eyes. I think Buffalo and Kansas City have the better quarterback, which matters in this league. But I think Cincinnati is far and away the better team, 1 through 53, coaching staff, defensive staff. And I think, like Cincinnati, I mean, I've got them 16-1 to win the Super Bowl. So absolutely, I think they're going to win the AFC. And they're the only team that I would consider because of the pricing gap here. Now, if this price gap closes over the next couple of weeks, then I don't feel the same way because then I think it's priced fairly. But I don't think Cincinnati being the 3rd team on that list by a large margin is a fair price right now. And I think there's still upside with the Bengals.
100%. Look, we saw something similar with the Heisman, right? With Caleb Williams. He was sitting at 7-1, 6-1, 7-1, 6-1. And then what happened in the final 2 or 3 weeks of the season? You took some bad losses for some other guys, and he shot right up to the top. If the Bills or Chiefs lose one more game for the regular season and the Bengals win out, guess who's going to be the favorite to win the AFC heading into the playoffs? It's likely going to be the Bengals or a coin flip situation with the Buffalo Bills where they're both the numbers are so short between each other. There's no value on either side. They
play each other in 2 weeks. That's going to be that'll be the catalyst there, right. Mark. Like Buffalo and Cincinnati play each other in 2 weeks. I kind of hope that Buffalo wins that game because I would rather Cincinnati win in the playoffs. But then again, that means Cincinnati would have to go to Buffalo. So then you can say, what's the better angle there? But that game's going to be fun in 2 weeks. I can't wait for that defense against Josh Allen. That's going to be a hell of a game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, looking over to the NFC here, a lot easier to figure out. Eagles top favorite at 150, 49ers behind them. I could give no real credence to the Cowboys at this point in time or anybody else. Pick a team, 49ers, Eagles, and run with it.
Yeah, let's bring Sean in for the NFC because I want to hear his take on the Eagles and if this number is still fair based off of what we're seeing now with the injury situation. I mean, this is like the Sean Eagles insider over here. You're breaking the freaking Jalen Hurts news this week with Gardner Minshew starting. Where are you getting your sharp info from, bud?
Well, it's a combination of knowing a couple guys, but also when you see the line
There you
jump
go.
3.5 points,
Yeah.
no one's hanging at Eagles +4 unless they know Jalen Hurts isn't starting. So you can kind of just do the math there. But yeah, I mean, it's really unfortunate, especially for Hurts's MVP case. I think the window gets way smaller for that, but by all accounts, like if this was a playoff game, he would be playing. But the Eagles only need to get one win to lock up the #1 seed. So, they're not going to rest any starters per se, but I think because Hurts is bagged up, they won't be playing him. But I still really like them as, to win the conference.
Well, to that end, let's just look at the short picture this weekend against Dallas. I said earlier, look, if you're giving me 5.5 points with the best team in the land, I'm going to take every single one of them just out of principle. Objectively, whatever the drop off is from Gardner Minshew, or Jalen Hurts to Gardner Minshew for that matter, it's not enough for it to offset the rest of the entire team, which is absolutely stacked and loaded. So I assume you're on the same side here, taking the points with the Eagles.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, part of me really, I really like the Eagles as a bet, even on the money line, but especially with the 4.5. I don't want Micah Parsons to be proved right, but he is right in the fact that they have a really good team around Jalen Hurts. And, really the matchup that I really love is on the defensive side right now. Like the Eagles just keep creating turnovers and Dak keeps generating them as well. So, you saw that's how that Jags game ended. You saw that's how the Texans were alive in that game. Like, I think it's going to be about, them being able to get pressure on Dak, sack the quarterback, and force him into turnovers. And I think Gardner Minshew, they get Dallas Goedert back. Like, they have a ton of dynamic playmakers around him and a really good offensive line. Like, I really like them catching that big number. And all the pressure is off the Eagles now. It's like, hey, we're playing with house money. Meanwhile, the Cowboys are going to be super tight.
Oh, yeah. The Cowboys are going to be so tight. And Dak's he's been a turnover machine the last 3 weeks. I mean, it's been interesting to watch because I think really Dallas kind of in the same boat too. Like I think the team around Dak is really good, but there's questions about can Dak win the big game and what's that going to look like? And I think, as good as Jalen Hurts has played this year, obviously that's the biggest question. Like in the big game, can he give you those Mahomes-like moments that you need, individual performances to win a playoff game? Let's kind of bounce around to the rest of the NFC because, obviously the Jalen Hurts injury, the rest of the NFC probably feels like they've got a better shot now, just based off of where Jalen's shoulder could be in the postseason. If there is another team that you think might be the next contender, the bridesmaid, I guess, who catches the bouquet if Jalen Hurts has to throw it away, what is that other team in the NFC that scares you the most as an Eagles fan and, of course, as a bettor?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, the 49ers, that defense is for real. And, you get Debo healthy. They're kind of in a similar situation where their defense is playing really well. You don't even need a ton from the quarterback. Brock Purdy, he's looked good enough. I mean, although I feel like I could complete like 60% in this offense right now with Shanahan scheming up wide open guys. And for them, if they really have to work on locking up that 2 seed if they can. Probably can't get to it because Minnesota keeps winning somehow. And no one's scared of Minnesota, but again, they keep winning. So if you have to go into Minnesota, and it's crazy to just because if you look at the numbers, the DVOA, any sort of regression, all that stuff, they're horrible. But at some point, they also just keep winning games. I mean, the 49ers, that defense is the way they rally and the physicality they play with. It's going to be a tough out in the playoffs for anyone.
Let me ask you this here, staying sort of semi-NFC, NFC East here. Let's say, for argument's sake, the Eagles win the game this week, and the Cowboys ultimately get into the playoffs, and they are the 5 seed. And Tampa Bay ends up winning the NFC South, which would put Dallas on the road against Tom Brady in the first round of the NFC playoffs. I assume the Cowboys will probably be about a 3.5 point favorite there as a number that they'll hang. Tom Brady in his career, at least coming into this year, has been a 70% ATS quarterback when catching points. What's your gut feeling right there?
Yeah, no, I think you nailed the line. I would just off the top of my head make it Dallas -4. You guys got to put in a little Dallas tax there, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean Tampa Bay is crazy because to your point, you keep mentioning Tom Brady in his career, but it's really hard to apply some of those. As someone that was sitting on Tampa Bay +3.5, smart, they're up 17-0. He's barely lost when he's that much. I don't know if you factor in those kind of his things right now, but I really love the Cowboys on the road in the playoffs as a road favorite. I might lean. I think I would probably take Tampa Bay +4 as a dog because Brady had to kind of close late, even in those couple games like that Rams game and that Saints game. He did drive down and give you some good stuff there at the end.
So I just looked at Sagarin, who's, I would say of the rating services out there, probably a top 5. And they actually would have this game a little tighter. It would probably be 3 or maybe even a soft 3. If you give Tampa Bay a couple of right now, they've got it on a neutral Tampa Bay -5. Dallas -5. So if you give Tampa Bay 1.5 to 2 points for home field advantage, it'd be closer to 3.5. So that would be a very interesting. Now, again, Jeff Sagarin is not the end all be all for rating services. The sports books could feel very differently about this line, but I do tend to lean on some of these guys that have been doing it for a while. So I'd be very interested to see what that line would be and where that first move would be. That would be a very interesting game, actually. And I hope we do get that game. I guess the Lions are the other toast of the NFC that we have to at least acknowledge right now. Again, their numbers have been, I think, better than Minnesota's. At least that's what the line said a couple weeks ago. And they also just keep winning games. And I thought their game against the Jets was very Vikings-esque. Their defense was good. Zach Wilson made it look better. But offensively, they were really held in check for most of that game. They scored a touchdown on special teams. And then Ben Johnson on 4th and 1 schemes up a beautifully designed play. They find themselves in the end zone and they escape with a win. Can the Lions make a run in the playoffs, or is this just a fun story that will likely end in the wild card round?
Yeah, I wouldn't say run, but could they win that first playoff game? They really could. When I'm looking at like teams I want to ride in the playoffs, I want to see that you can win in multiple ways. And to your point, going in and winning in New Jersey, winning outdoors, winning when your offense isn't carrying the team. Granted, you were going up against Zach Wilson, which really helps the model. But they got a special teams touchdown. They had a great play call on 4th and inches there. So, I kind of think they might be interesting that first round.
Listen, I love the Panthers this week. I feel like it's an ultimate letdown spot for the Lions. Like, it's one of those games you'll find out if the Lions are for real. The Panthers defense statistically doesn't look good. Over the last 5 weeks, they've been outstanding. They have 15 sacks of the quarterback over the last 5 games. Lions are on back-to-back road games here. Outside, I don't know.
I'm scared because Trubisky toasted that Panthers D on Sunday, and that scares me because I was on the Panthers on Sunday, and
you know what? I was too, and I recognize that I was hesitant, and I shouldn't have been, because it's one thing for the Panthers to be catching points. It's another thing for them to be laying points, and the Panthers aren't a team that should ever lay points. They're catching points here at home against a Lions team that we're so focused on their offense, but we forget how easy it is to move the ball in their defense. Well, the Panthers aren't exactly a competent offense. They have a competent running game, and that's the one thing the Jets don't have right now without Breece Hall. And for me, that's enough. If they can keep the Lions offense off the field a little bit by running the ball, if Donta Foreman can have a good game, then I really feel like they get a shot to win that thing outright. So I may be on the wrong side of it, but situationally, I feel like it's a spot for the Panthers.
Yeah, I co-sign that one 100%. To your point, the Panthers are a viable team when they can run the ball, and Pittsburgh really just shut down their running game, so they didn't have a bunch of other options. You saw why'd they go in and win in Seattle? Because they created a couple turnovers and they were able to run the ball, and that formula I think could work at home as a home dog. Sam Darnold as a favorite? No, thank you. Sam Darnold as a dog? Now we're talking.
Yeah, I agree, and the market agrees too. That line touched 3 a couple times this week, and it just got bought down really fast. So that's basically their line in the sand there. It's 2.5 now. I see a soft 3 out there in one shop, but if that thing gets back to 3 at any of the sharper shops here in town, I think that'll get bought off pretty quick. Anything else on your radar this week? Kind of, Sean, I feel like this season's been so freaking weird, but this week with all the Saturday games, the entire league is on a short week. Like there's going to be some flat performances, and it's really tough to figure out who, but maybe we can get to the bottom of it, right?
Yeah, no, that's why they play the games, right? I mean, I like, both I got to do it in the Berman voice, but that's why they play the games.
The Raiders.
I keep looking at both the Bills and the Chiefs. I keep fading them because they keep hanging these crazy numbers, and I don't know if the Bills are warranted to be 9-point favorites in Chicago. I mean, I think they come in and it's a similar game like we saw from the Eagles where Josh Allen, I don't know if that elbow is completely right. He still figures out ways to turn the ball over. Again, this is assuming that Justin Fields plays and is 100%-ish because he also got banged up in that Eagles game, the quad. So we'll keep an eye on that. But if he goes and the Bears are getting 9 points, that's really interesting to me. And then even the Seahawks getting 9.5. Playing for their playoff lives against this Chiefs team. Like the Chiefs and the Bills, as good as they've been, they haven't been covering these massive numbers. So I think both those dogs are pretty interesting to me this week.
Yeah, I like it.
All right. Anything else, Sean? I mean, listen, it's a jam-packed weekend. There's a lot going on. Are you going to spend any actual time watching any of the putrid games on Christmas Day?
Oh yeah, I mean, after you open
Sean
the presents,
every
you got
game.
a lot of time to kill. Yes, I watch
Sean,
every
Sean
game.
is the ultimate D-gen. I mean, this is King D-gen over here. He watches every second of the college crap games, not to mention the NFL.
Yeah, I was sweating out a Bahama Bowls beat over there the other day.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'll say this: don't give my buddy from Penn State McSorley 6.5 points. I think that could be
here we go.
Tampa Bay 6.5-point road favorite. In what world? Come on.
That is pretty insane. He was so. I mean, you're talking to Mr. Penn State. He was so bad last. That was such a bad performance by him. But Denver's pretty good defensively, so maybe Tampa Bay's not quite as strong this week.
Listen,
give him a week to prepare. Give him I would take McSorley over Russell Wilson right now any day of the week. Give McSorley a week where if he knows he's the starter over Russell Wilson any day of the week.
All righty. Well, Sean Green, make sure you guys check him out. He's on Twitter at Sean T. Green, co-host of Sports Gambling Podcast and covers the Eagles. Thanks for the time today. If we don't talk to you, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, all the life.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, guys.
Give Kramer my regards. Those Hokies are on fire, man. Those Hokies are on fire.
I know. Dominant. They're a basketball school now.
Virginia Tech. They are a basketball school now. And have a good one, bud.
All right. Thanks, Sean. Have a good one. I want to remind you guys that Let's Bet It is presented by Superbook Sports. Pile up the wins, pile up the money with Superbook. Right now, the best betting app from Las Vegas is giving you free money every week you make a bet. Just place a $50 bet each week with Superbook, and they'll give you a $5 bonus up to $50 for betting each week. Afterwards, if you're in Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, Nevada, New Jersey, or Tennessee, download the Superbook Sports app or visit superbook.com to get your streak started today. With that, Jared, before we get to our plays of the day, please grace us with the information on the Pickswise.com website.
Yeah, we got some action today. Lock Mamba chiming in, Notre Dame, Florida State basketball, college hoops tonight. Good little game there. I actually don't know if it's a good game, but those two teams have name value, so maybe it is a good game. We got hockey on the card today as well. Late night game if you're willing to stay up. Ducks Wild, Chadwick Wetzel chiming in, NBA, Philip Tomich, Lakers Kings total, and then Sam Avalone with college football, South Al, Western Kentucky. Really good game there. Two former Sun Belt rivals, and now they're not Sun Belt rivals anymore, playing tonight in the New Orleans Bowl, which I think we will get to in a minute. But yeah, we got all four sports for you today. NBA, college football, college hoops, NHL. 3-star action on the site.
All right, Jared, with that, let's get to our 3-star plays that will make the people scream. Yes, that's what we're here for every single day. I will give you the honors to do it first.
Well, shout out to Hank's Homes, which is a real estate agency in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And they are the reason, most notably their booster, Hank Wilson, they are the reason that our pal Austin Reed will be returning to Western Kentucky this year. Star quarterback, couple of transfers at the D2 JUCO level came into Bowling Green this year and lit the world on fire. This was a Bowling Green team, or a Western Kentucky team, that one of the best passing attacks in the country, second most attempts, second most yards. And now Austin Reed, he had a couple of offers from some Power 5 schools, but it was announced after entering the transfer portal that he will be removing his name from consideration. And again, thank you very much to that Bowling Green real estate agency for forking over the dough and allowing us to bet on Austin Reed's passing yards prop tonight in the New Orleans Bowl. So he's going to be without his second best wide receiver, Dawood Davis, his best pass catching tight end, Joshua Simon. But again, this is a volume play. This is a Western Kentucky team that I just said, their second most passing attempts in the nation this year. So even though the volume will be there, I'm a little concerned that he's missed without a couple pass catchers. But I still think he's going to get enough attempts to go over this prop. Western Kentucky's an underdog tonight, so game script dictates that they most likely will be behind. South Alabama also has a very good secondary. They're actually a top 20 EPA per pass defense this year. But when you dive in deeper, the Fun Belt is not a very pass-heavy league. And the one pass-heavy team that they face, Georgia Southern, who's about on par with Western Kentucky in terms of passing attempts per game, Kyle Van Treese went over this prop. So I think there's going to be a lot of air raid vibes in this game tonight. And as much as South Alabama's secondary will be up for the task, this is strictly a volume play. And 275.5 yards, that's not a lot of yards in a college football game. So I do think we're going to see Austin Reed kind of show us why he's staying with Western Kentucky, and we're going to get a glimpse of what we might see next year. And this is going to be a Hilltoppers team that's going to be chucking it all over the yard. So I'll go Austin Reed over 275.5 passing yards tonight. Fast track at the Superdome.
All right, Jared, I'm on the same game here with you in the New Orleans Bowl here. And I'm going to look to the total sort of in the same vein that you're talking about. Now, this total opened, I see 61.5 in certain spots, 64.5 in other spots. So this total has come down all the way down to 56. It's kind of where it's settled in at in most shops across the board here. Now, could some of that drop have been the Austin Reed news that changed things? Nonetheless, feels like way too much of an overcorrection here. We know, and you just detailed exactly what Western Kentucky can do offensively. They put up over 35 points per game. Austin Reed will be able to have success through the air. It's the one place where South Alabama's defense is a little bit susceptible, is in the pass, as opposed to being one of the 2 or 3 best run defenses in the nation. But that's not who Western Kentucky is anyway. They'll try to throw the ball and score that way. And I think they can have some measure of success against South Alabama, still, who has given up at least 20 points in their last 4 games. I think Western Kentucky can get over that. On the flip side, South Alabama, the Jaguars offense, nothing to shake a stick at either. They average over 31 points a game. They're a very good rushing team. You're looking at a Western Kentucky defense that gives up over 150 rushing yards per game. So I think both these teams are going to score points here. Too much of an overcorrection in the marketplace at 56. You give me 7 touchdowns between these two teams, I absolutely think they can get there. Give me over 56 tonight in the RL Carriers New Orleans Bowl between Western Kentucky and South Alabama. So you and I are sort of simpatico here in thinking where this game will go tonight.
Hopefully he chucks it all over the freaking yard.
When you think of the great quarterback transitions in NFL history, or in football history, I should say, you have Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, you have Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck, and of course you have Bailey Zappi to Austin Reed. I mean, just put him right up there with the other two, obviously.
We crushed I remember Bailey Zappi's prop last year was in the Boca Bowl was like 382. And he flew over that total. I think he threw for like 450 in that game. And again, that was a little bit of a different handicap because he was trying to improve his NFL draft stock. But this is still a Western Kentucky offense that they only know one speed, and that's pass.
All right, that'll do it for us here. Let's bet it again. Download the Pickswise app, available in the Apple Store and Google Play. Subscribe to the Pickswise YouTube channel. For Jared Smith, I'm Mark Zinno. Appreciate you guys watching us here on this Wednesday. Back tomorrow for another edition of Let's Bet It. Have a great day. Go cash some tickets. Go get it. Go bet it. We'll see you tomorrow.